Good afternoon. My name is Charles Scott. The name of this program is Can We Talk? Eldridge Gloria Brown is not here today. However, I'm holding up the fort. We're going to talk about some different things that might be of interest to you, or maybe you can share this information with some of your friends. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about credit and some of the things that you need to do to improve your credit. The last time I was here, we talked about some of the requirements of trying to get an apartment. Right now, as you know, I'm in real estate. I'm Charles Scott, and I talk about real estate related matters. Right now, we have a lot of people that are out there trying to find apartments, and pretty soon the moratorium will be lifted, so it's going to be even more competition out there, people searching, looking for apartments and trying to relocate from one place to the other. One of the biggest obstacles is credit. If you have a job and you've been at your place of residence for quite a while, then that's good. But then again, we have the credit situation. So last time I talked about an application for a rental. If you were out there and you're in the rental market and you're looking to rent an apartment, I gave you a lot of ideas as to what you need to do as how to fill out that rental application and what the landlords are looking for. Well, the landlord is going to scrutinize that application, and one of the important factors on that application is going to be your credit report. So I want to give you some ideas and some tips as to what you can do to improve your credit. For example, the first step is to get copies of your credit report. I would suggest that you get all 3 copies of your credit report to first of all find out what's on that credit report. Now there's 3 credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Those are the 3 credit bureaus spread out across the United States. And they have a wealth of information, millions of bits of information on people throughout the United States. Now there's other credit associations, but they're not credit bureaus. A lot of people go on the internet and they use these agencies to look up their credit. However, this is not a true picture of your credit. If you really want to know your credit score, go to those 3 agencies. If you're looking to get a mortgage, they look at the FICO score. Now, the FICO score is what it is basically is it's a combination of those 3 credit reports. And what they do is they take the 3 scores, they eliminate the highest one, they eliminate the lowest one, and the one that's left, that's the one that they use. It's not really in the middle per se, but it's the score that they use. Remember, they eliminate your highest, they eliminate your lowest, and what's left over, that's called your FICO score. Some individuals, if you have a credit card, I know Discover does it, and some of the credit card companies, as a service, they will give you your FICO score every month to give you an idea as to where you stand. But you want to get a copy of your credit report, and that's the first step in repairing your credit, because after all, how are you going to repair your credit if you don't know what's on the credit report? Now, how do you get a copy of your credit report? There's actually 2 ways. You can call them up. There's an 800 number. Also, you can write them, and you can, well, there's 3 ways. You can call them up, you can write them, or either you can go online, and it's called annualcreditreport.com, annualcreditreport.com. If you go onto their website, but remember, request all 3, not just 1. And they will guide you through it, give you a password, and you can download copies of your credit report and you can review the credit report. Now, what are some of the things that you look for once you get your credit report? I've actually never seen a credit report that did not have errors on it. So when you get a copy of that credit report, look for your name, make sure your name is spelled correctly, because there may be a person with a similar name as your name. And believe it or not, on just about every credit report, they've got 4 or 5 names for the same individual. That's because at one point in time, maybe the name was misspelled, or you might have given your name to a creditor, and that person who wrote down your name, they actually wrote it differently from what they thought it would be. And that gets put onto your credit report. So what happens is that someone else calls in and they use the same sounding name, but they write it differently. So on your credit report, you have all these different names. You may get confused with somebody else who has a similar address as your address in a different city, different state, but a similar name, and that credit report may be not good, it may be negative, and it ends up on your copy of your credit report. So make sure that your name is spelled correctly. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that they have the right address. Because if they have the wrong address, maybe there's someone with your name living in another address in another city, and that credit report ends up on your credit report. So these are some of the things that you want to look out for. Check your Social Security number, your date of birth, all of these things, and look for the right employers. Make sure that they have everything down there. All of the information on your credit report can influence your score, especially if there's a lot of various information. There's this address, this name, that name. It confuses the computer. Remember, most of these things are computer driven. If you confuse the computer and the computer feels as though a lot of these things are not correct, it may detect fraud or think there's something going on, and what will happen is that it will lower your credit score until it's corrected. So make sure that you go out and get a copy of your credit report and that you review that credit report to see all of the things that are on there to make sure that they are correct. The other thing you want to look at is basically your creditors. You may look and see that maybe a creditor reported something wrong on your credit report, and you may want to correct that. Now, how do you correct things on your credit report? Well, online they supply a form that you can fill out, and on that form you can put down and dispute the different credit items. If you have any documentation, you can take that documentation that you have, you can fill it out, and you can also upload it. Or if you're writing to them, you can write a letter to them, dispute that particular item. If you're going to dispute something, make sure when you write to them that you send a certified letter. Make sure that it's certified, make sure that it's a return receipt, because if you send something out in the mail, how do you know that they've even gotten it? But if they get it and they sign for it, then you get a letter back stating that they received it. Always ask for a corrected report. In other words, whenever you send anything to the credit bureau, ask them to send you back a report that has been corrected. The reason why I say that's very important is that you are only allowed one free credit report per year. You can get other reports, but you have to pay for them. So if you are going to ask for a credit report and you ask for them to correct something, they will send you another report, and they will not charge you for it. It's free. All reports that they send out when they correct it are free, and you could ask for as many as you want as long as you ask for a correction. So make sure that you ask for a corrected report. When they send that corrected report out to you, review it against whatever documentation that you sent them. Now, a lot of times there's things wrong on your credit report, and you may say, well, I paid that bill off. How come that's still showing up on my credit report? Because if you pay something off, that does not necessarily mean that the creditor sent it to the credit report as being paid. If you owe me money and I'm chasing you to get the money, and it takes me a long time to get the money, and you pay me, and I've already reported you to the credit bureau, well, once I get paid, then that's extra work for me to go and report it to the credit bureau. It's extra work for me to send them a letter. So it's extra things that I have to do. I may say, oh, I got paid, so that's good enough for me. I'm not going to bother to do all of that. So it's still on your credit report as not being paid. And possibly the only reason you paid me is because you wanted to get it off of your credit report. So yes, I got paid, but it's still on your credit report. So if I gave you a receipt, then you take that receipt, you send it to the credit bureau, and you say, this item on my credit report is wrong because I paid Mr. Scott, and here's my receipt. Now, they won't take that, for example, as the gospel. What they will do is they will write me a letter and ask me, did in fact I get paid? Because they want to verify it. So then what I will do is I will say, yes, I got paid, and then they will change your credit report. In other words, they will not take anything off your credit report unless it's verified. And then they will send you back a report. That's why I say corrected report, saying, oh, we've taken care of this item and it's been paid. So you want to check your credit report. You want to make items that are in error, you want to change them. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that will charge you to repair your credit. But most of the time, you can do most of this stuff yourself. Because what they do is they write a letter, have you sign it, because they can't write a letter pretending to be you and ask that items be taken off of your credit report. They can't do that. So when they write the letter, they have you sign it saying that, you know, you are the one investigating and you are the one taken off of your credit report. Well, since that's the case, you might as well just do it yourself and save the money. I always tell people the money that you're spending for the repair, you can take that money and pay your bills off. What happens is people get lax and they say, oh, it's complicated. I don't have the time. I'm not going to do that. Well, it costs you more money now because you're hiring someone to do something that you could easily do. What makes it worse is if you don't pay them, now they report you to the credit bureau. So now you have two people reporting you to the credit bureau. The bill you didn't pay and the person you asked to correct your credit and you didn't pay them either. So it's better that you control it yourself and you can control the whole situation. Plus you know what's going on. Now, a lot of people ask me, how long does it take for me to repair my credit? Well, it depends on how long it takes for you to have them verify, first pay them, and then verify that they have been paid. If they send it to the credit bureau, then it takes a little while for the credit bureau to correct it, approximately 2 months before it's actually corrected on your credit report. And then the following month is when you see it reflected in your score. So it's approximately 3 months. Sometimes people are looking to, let's say, buy a house. Some banks require a credit score of 620 or 640. Let's say you need a 640 and you're at a 620. Well, it doesn't take too much to get those extra 20 points. So you can do it yourself, and then within a matter of 3 months, you can boost up your credit card or your credit score. But speaking of credit cards, what's another way of building up your credit? Okay, I would say number one, settle your accounts or pay them off in full. If you pay a lot of small accounts, they hurt you worse off than the big accounts. Believe it or not, you can go to the library and get a library book and not bring it back, and they'll send you to a collection agency. So you might have $10 for a library book on your credit report that you didn't pay. Now, imagine if you're asking someone to borrow you $50,000 and you didn't pay $10 back. What do you think they're going to think? Well, if they didn't pay back $10, how are they going to pay me back? So small things can hurt you more than the big things. If you borrowed $50,000 and the COVID came, or you're unemployed, then you can find an excuse for that. You could say, you know, I didn't have a job, I had other bills, the money's coming. But if I look and see you owe $10 and you haven't paid it in 5 years, then what's your excuse? Right away, I'm saying this guy's not a good credit risk. If he can't pay back $10 in 5 years, So small things can hurt you, quite a bit. But getting back to, like I said, the credit cards, how do you build up credit? Well, let's say you have to establish credit too. Just correcting your credit and getting things off of your credit report does not necessarily shoot your score up that, as high as you may want it. So you have to build up some new credit. How do you build new credit? Guess what? Get some credit cards. And you say to yourself, well, how am I going to get a credit card when I got bad credit? Well, actually getting a credit card is very easy. It's probably the easiest part of the whole journey. And whether you can get what they call a secured credit card. What's a secured credit card? Well, that's a credit card secured by your own money. In other words, you go to the bank and you say, okay, I want to open up a savings account. So you put, let's say, $200 into the bank. So now they have a savings account, $200 in it of your money. Then you turn right around and say, I want a credit card for $200, a secured credit card. They say, okay, fill out the form. Fill out the form. They say, here's your credit card. You say, how come it's so easy? Well, number one, if you don't pay them back, they already have the $200. So therefore, they know that, there's nothing to check. They don't have to check your employment. They don't have to check your credit. They don't have to check anything, because what's securing that credit card is the $200 in savings. It's two separate accounts. If you don't pay back the credit card, then they keep your $200. So they give you the credit card based upon how much money you put in your savings. Now, what do you do with the credit card? You use it. Just having a credit card does not build up your credit. So you take the credit card, but you charge small items, maybe like groceries, gas, small things that you know that you can pay back. You charge an item, then you pay back that item. You charge it, you pay it back. Now, all of this is getting reported to the credit bureau. As it gets reported to the credit bureau, guess what's happening? It's building up your credit. Now, the worst thing you could do is get a secured credit card and then don't pay it back. Now you're in worse shape. So what you want to do is, try to get 2 secured credit cards. Because like I said, paying off your bills, eliminating some of your debt is good, but you must also at the same time build up some of your credit. If you just tuned in, and hopefully you didn't, you've heard what I said from the beginning. My name is Charles Scott. I am the broker for Tri-State Realty here in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I'm trying to give you an idea of how to build up your credit, whether you want to rent an apartment, buy a house, buy a car, whatever it may be. Just about everything we do today is based on credit. Even when you buy life insurance, guess what? They check your credit. They want to know if you owe everybody under the world, under the sun and everything, and if you're a bad risk. If a businessman, if he's buying a lot of life insurance, that's one of the first things they look at is his health and his credit. Because if this person owes hundreds of thousands of dollars, number one, they're wondering what about the people he owes it to? Are they going to cause him bodily harm? Is he going to disappear? Is he going to jump off? And they say with the crash of the stock market, everybody was so much in debt they jumped off the building and killed themselves because they couldn't face being poor. Well, so credit has a lot to do with how much life insurance you buy, and also car insurance. Car insurance, it has a lot to do with car insurance. How many of you out there, you go to get a quote on your life insurance, or not a quote on the life insurance, but a quote on the car insurance? What's the first thing they ask you? Your name, your address, your driver's license, and your social security number. So you're probably saying, what has a social security number got to do with car insurance? Well, what they want to do is check your credit, because they're thinking like this. You got to think how they think. You're on your way to work, you have a little accident, tiny little accident. Probably just rubbed your car, didn't even cause any damage. Hey, you're on your way to work, you're in a hurry. You got good credit, you want to be able to make money, you want to be able to pay your bills, everything. So it's really not a big thing. Even if you have a little small accident, you take the money out of your pocket, you fix the car up, because you don't want to put it on your insurance because you got good credit, you don't want to have any blemishes. Now take the other guy. He's on his way to work, his credit is horrible. He owes everybody under the sun. And he has a little accident. Well, first thing he's thinking of is, how can I sue? Where can I get some money? How can I get paid from this accident? So number one, he's going to right away put a claim in, try and get some money, try and see what he can get out of the insurance company, because he's got bad credit, owes everybody in the world, got all these bills. So he's more apt to file a claim than the other guy. So, and insurance companies know that. They say the person with the bad credit is the one that's going to be putting all the claims in. The one with the real good credit, who doesn't want to be bothered, they're not going to put a claim in. So believe it or not, that's how come they check your credit. So getting back to how do you repair the credit and how do you get the credit going. Secured credit card, that's one way of doing it. You can actually pay the credit bureau to put items on your credit report. You heard what I said? You can pay the credit bureau money to put items on your credit report. These are all little tips I'm giving you. But you don't want to pay the credit report companies money to put bad stuff on your credit, only good stuff. For example, you pay your landlord all the time. Maybe there's a clothing store down on the corner you've been doing business with for years. You've always paid off, they give you credit on the line. In other words, it's not a credit card, but certain people give you credit, and it's not through a card, or they do it personally. So now these are good references that you have. So you could ask them to write you a letter stating how long you've been doing business with them, and that, number one, you always paid them on time. You can take this information and have it filed onto your credit report. You send a letter, there's a small fee they charge you, but you could actually have that put onto your credit report. So now you're building up credit. So there's little things, little tips I'm giving you, things that people can do out there that they're not even aware of. They just do the status quo. What it is. My credit's bad. Sometimes people will call me up and I'll say, how's your credit? And they'll say, oh, it's bad. I'm like, how do you know? Oh, I just know it is. Well, what have you done about it? How do you know it is? Oh, I applied for this card and I got rejected. Maybe you filled the form out wrong. It doesn't mean you got rejected just because, they rejected you just because of your credit. You don't know what it. Maybe someone had a different address. Maybe someone else has a name like yours. Go a little step further, find out what's going on. What is the problem? Better than that, figure out what can you do about it to correct. Are you just going to let it just stay there, for forever? Now, speaking of that, we can segue into something else. Forever. What is forever? The way the law works, the Federal Credit Reporting Act states, any negative credit that has not been challenged or is not being paid back on your credit report after 7 years is supposed to get erased. That's right. They actually give you a second chance. So if you've got a collection on your account, you haven't paid now remember, you haven't paid any money on it in 7 years. You haven't negotiated. If you negotiated a deal with them and you said you were going to pay them, now the 7 years is off the table because you've agreed to pay them all along, and you still haven't. In other words, but if after 7 years you haven't agreed to pay them any money, they've been trying to collect it, and nothing's happened, that dormant account, 7 years, you could ask, they're supposed to take it off your credit report. That doesn't mean that they don't necessarily do it. You got to do some work here. Look and see, oh, that's over 7 years. That shouldn't be on my credit report. That's one of those letters that you're going to write. You're going to say, I noticed on my credit report that there's an item on my report that has been there over several years. Please remove that from my credit report, and always follow it up with, what did I say? And send me a corrected report. So just don't ask them to do something. Ask them to respond by sending you a corrected report. Now, they have 30 days to send you a report. They can look into it, and they'll find out if there's an agreement in place for you to pay that creditor. If there's no agreement, it's been there 7 years, they can take that off of your credit report. However, bankruptcies, bankruptcies, I think it's 10 years before they come off. So even if you've gone bankrupt before and it's over 10 years, guess what? That comes off your credit report too, if it's over 10 years. So you have the ability to control your situation, to control your credit, to control your life. However, if you do nothing, then it will continue on as it is. You know, things do not have to be the way they are. You have some control as to what you can do, but you've got to do it on, you got to wake up, get out there, take action. And what's the action? Send for a report, write out some letters, monitor it, see what it is that you can do. And this will totally change your life around. Credit will change your life around. The world will open up to you. Things that you thought you couldn't do, you could do. So, hopefully what I've told you today will encourage you to get up and do something about it. However, again, this program is to give you ideas and give you some information out there to help and enhance your life. So Can We Talk? Hopefully I've been able to help you today. Again, my name is Charles Scott, and hopefully I've been able to help you. Again, thank you. God bless. Shalom, shalom. Till next week. Thank you.